So then you could choose one of those three. So it's like a nice little decision tree, right? It's like, okay, option, you know, I have A, I have B, and I have C, and they all beat, right? They all beat what would be button. Okay, I could block, okay, I could parry, I can reversal. So then whenever you make another decision, like, well, okay, well, if I block, what beats that? He's probably going to throw me. Okay, so he throws. Okay, or maybe he does an overhead, right? Because I'm crouch blocking. Then now I have a decision tree off of that. What do I do with this? I got parry the overhead on reaction, right? I can see. So this is how you would break down defensive decisions. Welcome to the Zaffarino experience. As you know, I am here to solve all of those problems that you guys tend to bitch and complain about. So this is for my peoples who are, of course, tired of waking up on defense and just feeling like all of their decisions are wrong. I just can't decide if I should block, high, low, left, right, in, out. I can't figure out if I should DP or not. I just always feel like I'm getting cornered for some reason. I'm just never mid-screen. I don't know why. The guy doesn't even hit me, but all of a sudden I'm ass to grass in the corner of the stage. This is for you, okay? So the point of this video is to help you overcome the mindset and skill set challenges that might contribute to your downfall on defense. I present you why your defense sucks. First, we're going to talk about the bad habits of why your defense is horrible, putrid, trash. Your mother doesn't love you. And then we're going to also talk about the mindset portion of it, the skill set portion, okay? And then we bridge off, and then we go into why your defense is amazing, lovable. You're just so confident. You look like, I just can't open you up. This man is guaranteed 2,500 MR. That's what we're going to be doing today. So now let's begin. The first element of why your defense sucks. You're panicking. You are panicking. You are under duress. So when you are on defense, okay, typically you don't want to be there. Okay, so this makes a lot of sense, psychologically speaking. I am in a situation at the very start of the round I was trying to avoid. If everything was sunshine, rainbows, and lavender and chocolates, then of course I would never be on defense in a 2 out of 3. Obviously, right? I would get 4 perfects in a row, and the opponent would have never gotten a chance to play the game. That's just not how this game works. It's not how fighting games work, to be honest. Any fighting game, for that matter. Okay, so you have to be honest about that. And so if you know it is inevitable that you are going to be on defense, then it has to be something that you accept as a possibility. But when you panic, it's likely a situation that you are trying to you will just go to the end of the universe to avoid. But the problem with that is that if you put too much strain on avoiding something, other areas of your play will suffer. So panicking, though, causes you to be stuck in the past or have anxiety towards the future. So you're not really in the moment. You understand? And the thing about the future is it doesn't really exist because it's the future. We don't know what the fuck's going to happen in the future. We have an idea, but anything can happen. All right. So it's really a projection of probably failures and conditions from your past that you're just projecting into a circumstance that hasn't happened yet. So this is why, for example, if you are playing Jamie and you're like, damn, I fucking hate Akuma. Akuma is just fucking annoying, right? And then now you have this tension towards this character. It doesn't matter the skill level of the character in front of you. You are going to get very tense just from seeing them on the screen, and then everything's going to suffer. Your attention, your attitude, your focus, your efforts, right? So you have to be very aware of this because you don't want to contribute to your own demise before the match even starts. It's very important to just be mindful of that. You are scared of the throw. All right, so this is for my people who just, for some godforsaken reason, cannot stop teching. You just keep teching. Every time the person is just next to you, you just let that bad boy rip. And then you're getting shimmied for so much damage. If you cannot take the throw, it is likely you are not paying attention to the overall game state. You are probably treating every situation as do or die. Like, I have to be correct here. And it kind of builds off of what I talked about with the panicking thing. You're probably projecting previous instances of being on defense from previous matches. It can be as far back as season 1. It could be in Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5. It doesn't even matter the game. Where you see taking a throw as leading to some fucked up situation. And in the corner, of course, this can be true because you have throw loops. Okay? And then you have this looping offense, which is really strong. And throws are so strong in this game because they beat the strongest defensive option, which is parry. But here's the thing. You're not in the corner yet. You're here. You're mid-screen. So when you take a throw, sometimes people think taking damage is bad, period. No. Just because somebody has a life lead in this game especially, that's not the real health bar. The real health bar is your drive gauge. Okay, so honestly, you can have like a 40% like difference in the health aspect of the game, right? Your opponent has that 40% advantage on you, and you still could be in a neutral situation. Because what really matters is positioning and drive management. So those elements right there are very, very important when you make decisions in the immediate present moment and for the long-term aspects of a set. Okay, we'll talk about that in a bit. So taking the throw is not the end of the world, but for some reason, people tend to do that. You have turn stealing syndrome. Okay, so essentially what this is that as soon as any sort of block stun is induced, you as the defender fire off something, like immediately. Okay. This is dangerous against players that have, of course, labbed pushback and labbed the distances of your buttons. So if you're playing a character that's popular like an Akuma, chances are if you're playing a top player, they have some idea of what the most important buttons to be mindful of are, which for Akuma would probably be stand heavy punch, cross medium kick, which is any character with a low forward that's cancelable. You want to know the low forward range. Okay, that way you know how far you have to be to really dance outside of the range of it. Okay, because in this game a lot of the buttons are negative, so when you walk back, if you don't have advantage when you walk back, you're going to be in proximity block. So you see this, I should be able to walk back, right? But because I'm only, what am I, -3 here. Okay, so this is a difference. So this is -3, stand light kick was -1. So in this situation I'm -3, okay, but her low forward is 8 frames, so there is a nice 4-frame window where I should be able to walk back. Okay, so if I'm here, okay, let's say I'm here and then I walk back, I should not be able to get hit here. Okay, there you go. Okay, so I should be able to walk back here, right? You'd think, but no, because of proximity block it doesn't work like that. Okay, and I get tagged. Now these type of situations, the game makes it feels a lot stickier, so if people feel like you can't really move, but the best course of action here would be like a jump back or a backdash, a hard commit to something just to avoid being in that proximity block situation. So this is a situation that's super important. And if you're not aware of this, this is why you keep getting hit with low forward drive rush when you're trying to move, you're trying to space trap and stuff like that. Okay, so this is something that you should be practicing and figuring out which one of your buttons have a lot of pushback that allow you to walk back like this and which ones kind of don't. Okay, so when you are, when you're constantly firing buttons like this is how people catch you with space traps. Okay, so you gotta be careful with just always being greedy to just getting block stun back, because then you can get cooked like this. Okay, so sometimes players are just setting this up, other times it's just scrambles can occur. So let's say a player does this but they don't even give a fuck about them, they don't even care if you're gonna press a button or not. You're just playing a player that's just playing a one-player game. I like to call him a b-boy. Okay, so you're playing a b-boy because what do b-boys do? They just break dance one at a time, right? A b-boy, they dance one at a time. Okay, so in their head they're like, oh, it's my stage, they don't care about you because it's not your turn, they're just doing their own thing. So when you play these type of people, they're just kind of playing a one-player game. They're gonna just do this, and they were gonna just do this anyways. You see what I'm saying? They were gonna just do that. They didn't care if you're gonna press, they just thought you were gonna block, or they thought you weren't gonna anti-air. They didn't know that they were gonna counter a poke simultaneously. In that moment, they might be aware of the concept of it, but in that moment they just might have been like, fuck it, I just want pressure, right? They want to get offense started just as badly as you want to escape defense. This is where a lot of scrambles happen, is because you tend to retaliate and press your buttons right away. This is something that you have to be mindful of, otherwise you're susceptible to getting whiff punished and spacing trapped to death by players that are just doing this all day. You go on autopilot, you don't really pay attention, you're just kind of doing things. Every match looks the same, every matchup looks the same, every situation you don't really want to be in it unless you're the one that's on offense. So what I like to think of autopilot typically is like a coping mechanism. It is a way for you to cope with the stress of exertion, of you actually having to put in effort. Okay, because it is a mental muscle that will get exhausted, that leads to autopilot. So for example, even if you're a new player, you autopilot, you're just doing what's familiar because that's the path of least resistance. It could just be fucking jumping and doing all sorts of random shit, right? And just doing stuff like this or drive rushing, whatever. When people do stuff, they don't think about the other person on the other end of this interaction. So it's important for whenever you do anything, it doesn't matter what the tool is. In terms of a layer 1, on defense, on offense, in strategy, and neutral, it doesn't matter what you choose. What matters is, do you pay attention to the influence of that thing on the opponent? Do you? If you do, it doesn't matter what you did for a layer 1, because guess what? If it works, or if it afforded you a situation that can help you, that can help contribute to you maintaining a winning position, a winning advantage, keep doing it. If they change or it causes a shift in their behavior, then cool. Now you're aware of that. You see what I'm saying? And even if that option that you did wasn't the optimal thing to do with your character, guess what? Now you can switch to maybe a more optimal strategy or approach or tactic. You see what I'm saying? So there's no wrong way to go about how you express the first interactions or stuff like that in terms of like the neutral or defense. But the most important thing is like at least be aware. Because a guess is a guess at the end of the day. We're all guessing. We're guessing in neutral. We're guessing on offense. We're guessing on defense. You're guessing in scrambles. You're guessing in footsies. It's just educating the guess to ramp up the probability of the guess being accurate. So you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. So all we're just trying to do is figure out a way to increase our chance of being correct. That's literally it. Nothing else. You don't have to put any more pressure on yourself in a situation, right? When you feel like you need to be correct 100%, then you're probably being too extreme with the situations. Unless, of course, you're gambling on like a hard read. Like the person has, you know, you can kill them if you read DP on their wake up. You're going to DP them. You're going to walk up DP them. But then it's like you have 80% life and you only have 1 bar of drive. You're up a match and a round so you can win the set. Does it make sense to do that there? If you're a better player, you want more interactions. You don't want to give them the chance to beat you with less interactions. You understand? That's what makes the game so difficult and so challenging, is because you have to really construct a match in a way well before you pick up the arcade stick, the leverless, or your D-pad. You have to construct an approach that is going to give you as many interactions as possible so you can beat the opponent. But you see, that's not intuitive. How do I think of that? I have to watch a lot of replays. I have to discuss the game. I have to really like think and assess and analyze and go through the layers of decision making and the things and the matchups and stuff like that, okay, to bring about that type of consistency. You fail to account for long-term consequences. Okay, so when you are on defense, let's say I am blocking Jury. Okay, I am in this situation. Okay, now I have full health. It's okay if I take a throw. Why? Because of what I said a little bit ago. I want to get as many interactions as possible. It is very unlikely that a player is going to throw you 9 times in a row. That is just so fucking unlikely. So knowing that, and knowing at minimum I have 4 rounds in a row to fight against this person, I want to see, what is your tolerance? How much are you willing to commit to this option? Or how badly will you commit to it? Because here's the thing, mid-screen versus the corner game, as far as defending throws, for example, you get a lot more opportunity to get out of the mid-screen throws. But whenever you make a decision on defense, you have to think in terms of endgame, okay? If I am going to invest, let's say, 2 bars to EX her, right? To EXDP her. If I have full bar, that's not the worst thing. Okay, but what if I'm here? This is not good. So if I'm here, this is not a great situation to EXDP her. Why? Because now look. Yes, I got her off of me. Okay, this is fine and dandy. She's all the way over here. Now here's the problem. Look at my drive gauge. Look at her drive gauge. And then not only that, when it comes to Street Fighter 6, when you want to replenish your drive gauge, you typically have to do what? You have to move forward. I need to move forward. I have to close the gap. But the problem with closing the gap is now, guess what? I am forcing myself to interact. Because otherwise, if I close this gap against Jury, okay, let's say I close the gap. I'm going to interact with her, and if I don't do anything, she just makes me block like 2 mediums and I'm in burnout. Or she makes me block a heavy into a DRC and I'm in burnout, which is super rough. But now here's the thing. You might be thinking, well, all right, Zaf, why not stall out? Well, here's the thing. When we talk about stalling out, we're saying like maintain a far distance, right? Here's the problem. Yeah, you can do that, but it depends on the character too, right? Jamie doesn't have a projectile. So a lot of his means of stalling out is going to be him lunging forward, either with a palm, with a poke, right? Maybe jump or dive kick or something. And if I am inaccurate, then I am going to do what we just talked about. I am going to close the gap and I'm going to be in pressure range. So now I'm in pressure range. And then now Jury can just kind of go ham on me. Okay. And so this is not good. So in a situation like this where she does this, you have to think, what's the best course of action for me here? Honestly, it's not DP. If you know she's going to press, the best thing would be, okay, to probably try to go to perfect parry it. This would probably be your best course of action. Look at my drive gauge. I was able to reverse the whole situation because of that. The biggest threat was something that wasn't even going to happen to me in the situation. It was going to happen to me afterwards if I made a terrible mistake. Successfully. A successful decision. Getting her off of me. And then look what happens. So you have to think about the next situation and how you're going to defend that situation, even though you're not in that situation yet. So it sounds contradictory because I was saying earlier, like, you know, you want to be present-minded, right? Yeah, you want to focus in the present, but the thing is, you want to be mindful of the repercussions in the future of the present. You see what I'm saying? So it's like it's a fine line, because obviously you don't want to produce too much of a anxiety off of focusing on the future, because then you become like paralyzed with fear, or you become explosive with this aggression of just trying to forcibly avoid something, right? So you have to be very careful with teetering that line. All right, so it's more so, it's like this very soft awareness of a future event, but you're still in the moment right now. You understand? That's the type of balance you have to have mentally. So, of course, if this is not something that you've stumbled upon intuitively, how the fuck do you know this? You probably don't, unless somebody's brought this to your attention, or you just so happen to have a eureka moment watching matches and being like, oh, wow. So this is something that you do have to consider. So you don't understand your wake up options. So of course this varies from character to character, okay? You have to be mindful of what your character can do to try to mitigate a situation. So let's start from a universal standpoint. Every character has access to these things. They have access to parry, drive reversal, backdash. You have access to jump also against throws. DI is also a real thing. Okay, that is also a thing. You can do all of those things. Every single character has access to those things. Most characters in the game will have like something like a super, okay, like a level 1. But not all supers are created equally. There are certain characters whose level 1 supers are not invincible to hits, but maybe they are invincible to throws. Okay, so let's say Jury, for example. She knocks me down. She does this. Okay. Cooked. But if she tries to throw me, it's invincible to throws. You see? So it's important to understand the properties of your tools so that you can see how you can use them as wake up options. Okay, your wake up options aren't just tied to, you know, the characters, right? In terms of like the uniqueness, right? Like your character, it's also their character. What is your opponent's options on offense going to allow you to do on defense? So what I mean by that, so let's say Jury throws me. If I quick rise, I'm in pressure range. Okay, she can pressure me. So in this situation, right after throw, if I wake up quick rise and I try to mash, I get cooked. But here's the thing, in this game, if the throw is not a hard knockdown, which is afforded on punish counter, so if they throw a parry or they throw punish you on the recovery state of a move, you are afforded a hard knockdown. What this means is that you cannot choose a varied wake up option. So if I quick rise, I'm cooked. I can't jump this. If I quick rise, I'm cooked. Okay, I can't mash. I'm cooked. Okay, I can't backdash. I'm cooked. Okay, but I can back roll, and look what happens. I've completely avoided this situation. Look at how much health I've lost. I've lost 12% of my health for this situation, for me to go back to neutral. But the difference is now I'm back to neutral with a little less space from the corner, but I'm still in neutral as long as I got thrown more so like mid-screen. All right, if I'm in the corner, then I'm cooked, obviously, because you can't really back roll in the corner, because then, you know, you're in the same spot, right? Like if I get thrown here, there's no back roll that's gonna matter because I'm not rolling anywhere. Okay, but getting thrown here is totally fine. This is totally fine. And then this is how you can punish a lot of people for mistakes, because they don't even realize that you're back rolling. So most characters in the game can't pressure in this type of situation in a meaningful way. They might be able to hit you, but they can't get throw range. Throw range is the most important range for pressure. So wake up options are super important to understand. That right there, just understanding that will easily help a player, like if you're in the lower levels, get to at least like 1600. If you can anti-air consistently and stuff like, if you can anti-air consistently, right, and you have like decent whiff punishes, you can easily get to 1600. Next thing, you manage your meter poorly. When you make a decision defensively, you always want to think about like not only the worst case scenario of right now, but the worst case scenario of the next situation. So if you make a decision that it's okay to lose now, and it will also in the situation thereafter, you won't be in a fucked up sit. You won't be too far off, like in terms of being at a disadvantage. So this is a prime example is what I was just talking about in regards to the back roll on the throw mid screen. So you want to take the throw there, then you understand that although I am subjugating myself to taking 12% damage, my drive is going to replenish. I'm going to gain space, and depending on how you threw me, how you got the throw accomplished, you might actually be in a really bad situation. Okay, so this is the other caveat to this. So let's say Jury does this. This situation's okay. Why? Because she invested 3 bars to get a sixth of a bar back. But now here's the problem. Is Jury, by doing this, the problem with this is, for Jury, for me, it's not really a problem. It's no problem at all, to be honest. But for Jury, this is rough because she drive rushes here. Okay, and she's now look at a drive gauge. So now we got to think worst case scenario. What if I know she's doing this? What if I know Jury is doing this? So now let's say this all happens. Okay, now look at her drive. Now I have her to 2 bars. She's at 2 bars. I have Oki. I just did damage. Maybe I have corner push. Maybe I have side switch. It doesn't matter. But now there's the threat of me burning her out. All because of that situation. And the reward that she got wasn't even that great. It wasn't really worth it. If she did a raw drive rush and she did that, that's different because raw drive rush is 1 bar, right? So instead of her expending 3, she spends 1. She'd still be at 5. She'd get a 6th back for the follow-up pressure, a little bit more from the throw. Then it's not too bad. But this situation is rough because now if I do get close to her, she is going to feel more inclined to not block, which means she's going to take elevated risks. And the thing about elevated risk is people become more predictable when you can identify what their risk taking is in those moments, because it's very difficult to be self-aware and self-manage while also trying to conquer and dominate your opponent at the same time. All right, so when there's this extrinsic pressure on you in the form of meters telling you, hey, if you fuck up, you're going to be in burnout. You take a stun, DI, you're dead. Okay, now they're thinking about that. That's a lot of pressure, right? They have to factor this in. So I have now created a situation where even a patient player might be compelled to take a risk that they don't want to take. So now, depending on your character, certain tools get a lot stronger, like command grab, right? Against players that like to parry when they're low on drive, because maybe they want to get their drive back, but then your command grab, which works further than a regular grab, is more threatening and it does more damage. So this all stems from the greed that comes from wanting to impose and force an offense that wasn't really rewarding to begin with. So you can't anti-air consistently. This would be the next skill set that would cause your defense to suffer. You got to be able to anti-air. Why? Because if you do not anti-air, you are dealing with pressure from 2 fucked up directions. You're dealing with pressure from here, and then you're also dealing with the green here. Okay? All right? So you want to be able to at least cover one of these 2 consistently, so then it forces your opponent to try to stick to the other. If I'm dominating somebody on the ground, they're probably going to be like, yo, I have no hope here. If I'm playing Punk, oh man, Punk incredible. Fuck that. Let me just try to start jumping at him, right? So that's what will happen. Covering this will help simplify the game. And because it will be a little bit more predictable, it'll make it less anxiety inducing when you go to make a decision or when you want to let things kind of happen, right? You don't feel like you have to play perfect when you can cover something consistently. You don't have to win every single battle, guys. Like, you're not going to always check the drive rush. Some jumps are going to slip you by, even me with my greatest anti-airs of all time. People can still get past me by game design, not because of a skill set matter, but the game's design allows it now a lot easier than ever. And so you just have to accept it. Okay, like it's just a part of the game now. So these bits of variance that get introduced into these interactions, you don't have to win everything. And if you don't, it's okay. You just don't panic and you maintain presence of mind. You can mitigate the losses and the blows from being like devastating. Okay, anti-airing is good though, because you do want to be able to simplify what you're looking for. All right, and then also, if you know somebody just resorts to the air approach and they can't stop, then you just delete the ground approach. You just don't give a fuck about this anymore. Now you just ignore this. Because if you've punished somebody so many times and they still are resorting to this, it's a crutch. It's just a crutch at that point. So then you just look for this. You're going to get a lot of information off of that. You're going to see somebody's tolerance on the ground, the air, vice versa, in terms of what they don't tolerate. You're going to get to see what happens when a person feels caged mid-screen. That's how you can kind of make somebody feel like they're in the corner. Like you're on defense, but now they feel like they're on defense because you're just boxing them in, and in mid-screen, they just feel like they have no choice. Okay, so it's like a psychological prison you're putting them in. They feel like no approach works. That's the worst type of feeling to have when you're on offense. You fail to counter drive impact. So DIs, here's a little tidbit. You have optimal DIs, all right, which are the ones that's like guaranteed. And those guaranteed DIs are going to be the ones where, you have no access to super, your opponent doesn't have access. So like right now, as Akuma, I don't have super. Juri hits button DI on me, I'm cooked. She does this into this, I'm cooked. There's nothing I can do. Now, if I have access to a super, there are still optimal DIs, but you still have an option to deal with it, okay? So a DI that's optimal, even if your opponent has access to a super, is one where, for example, if I take the DI, or if I super, like let's say I as Akuma, I'm fighting against Akuma, right? Let's say Juri does this. If I super her, this is not good for me because she back rolls here. I don't get any pressure, and if she makes any sort of contact with me, especially look at how much drive gauge she has, and she has one of the best drive rushes in the game. Any sort of contact, I'm guaranteed bouncing off the wall. Nothing I could do. So now I have to play super aggressive defensively here. Okay. So here, maybe I don't even really want to super that DI. Instead, maybe I'll just take it because it's early on in the match. Okay. And then this is totally fine. She does a combo. It's not going to kill me. And I still conserve my super bar for something that's going to be more like beneficial, down the road. Maybe another burnout scenario or just the optimal combo to kill, something along those lines. Okay. So now the DIs where they can die from you getting, that's where it's like, okay, right? These aren't like the optimal DIs anymore. Cause now it's like, I could die if so if I'm in this situation and I have level 3, this is not good for her to do this. Because she dies. So yeah, if you are also on defense and you're blocking these buttons into DI, if you're not aware of what frame traps into the DI, then that's also contributing to why you're getting hit by DI. Okay, so you have to be mindful of what is real and what isn't. Your defensive choices operate at the same timings. So whenever you're defending, okay, most people, when they're not comfortable, they're just trying to fire off things at the fastest possible timing, but then you become predictable. If I'm fighting against this Juri and this Juri keeps trying to take her turn back with crouching medium kick, all I have to do is just space it out. So if I figure out the button that does this, she can get clapped. Okay, so there's no variance in her timing. But instead, what if she slightly delays it? What if she delays it by like 5 frames? Oh, I didn't see anything. So maybe I go and then I try to walk up because I didn't see anything, right? Or maybe make it even slower. Let's make it 10 frames. Nothing? Okay, I walk up. Ooh. Oh. Okay. So maybe I try to frame trap her. And I'm not catching her because of it. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. But if you're predictable with your timings, you're just a lot easier to take advantage of. So if I always know you're going to fire this at the reversal timing, meaning the fastest possible timing, it's just training mode simulator at that point. I don't really have to think much about it. So your timings have to be a little bit more varied in when you do stuff. Okay, sometimes commit to a timing, sometimes commit to don't do anything until you see them moving forward. We'll talk about that in a second. All right, so we understand the mindset and skill set aspects of why your defense sucks. But why is your defense good? Okay, you are calm under pressure. So there's a word I really like. I love this word, equanimity. Equanimity is a state of mental calmness, emotional stability, and balance, especially when facing stress, pain, or difficult circumstances, allowing one to remain composed and non-reactive. So emotions are very fast, okay? Just by human design. You got your primitive part of your brain, your amygdala, all right, which is where all of those like emotional responses are they're typically triggered. Okay, this is like your primal state. That is closer to your brainstem. All right, so whenever your brain decides to send off these electrical signals that your prefrontal cortex is waiting to receive, it actually has to go through this part of your brain first. So your emotions are typically going to be activated before your logic ever gets to step in the room. Okay, so you have to be mindful of this being a natural human condition. In order for you to exercise discipline, you have to change the way you look at things contextually. It makes it a lot easier for you to calm down when you do feel slighted by whatever it is that you're, experiencing from blocking and defending or whatever, right? Certain parts of the game might piss you off. Like they piss me off, right? But what helps me is I got to change the way I look at it. Okay. And it could be a bunch of different things. I think of what I can control. I can't control the game design. I can't control what my character is and isn't good at. I can't control the amount of damage that this situation, if I get hit by this drive rush overhead into level 3, I can't control that. It's a part of the game. It is what it is. I signed up for and accepted it once I've committed to playing the game. So anything beyond that is just wasted energy, right? So next, for why your defense is good. You have clear goals that soften the blows of short-term losses, okay? So you want to have something that you're striving towards, because if you don't have a goal, essentially what's going to happen is your goal becomes the measurement. We talked about this with Goodhart's Law, right? It's something that's supposed to help you measure your progress ends up being the goal to determine, like, if you are progressing, which is not the point. If I, for example, don't have a goal, winning and losing now becomes the goal. But you're going to lose. I have to fucking lose. Everybody loses. So now because of this, I don't have a long-term goal to work towards. All I'm measuring my progress off of is, am I winning or not? You know how many of my fucking students do this to me on the regular? Oh, Zaf, I lost 200 MR. Oh, man. Was that the goal? When you said you wanted to make it out of pools at Evo, what does that have to do with MR? MR is just a measuring stick. It doesn't say, this isn't the goal. This is just an aspect. MR only matters if you allow it to matter, honestly. This happens to everybody. Like, if you're not careful, you might just be like, oh. And it's not just an MR thing. It could just be like a winning casuals, right? Like, or just like if you just don't prioritize learning because you don't have a goal towards learning, your goal ends up being, oh, I'm gonna just win everything. You're gonna experience a lot of burnout, fatigue. You know what I'm saying? It's just not ideal for long-term sustainable growth. So make sure you have a goal. And the goals can be simple, bro. It can just be like, don't tech this round. So something that I'm known for are my challenges, right? You guys love watching those streams where I say, yo, I'm not going to do this for the entirety of a stream. So then I dedicate my entire stream to not drive rushing, not using drive gauge, not jumping, not walking backwards, sitting still, Medusa style streams. Okay? The whole point is you identify, that's the goal, right? I have a goal. This is my goal. When I've created a goal, I absolutely accept losing, because the point of the challenge is to be so fucking extreme I'm not supposed to win. I would literally be an idiot trying to win, trying to play like that. So it absolutely destroys my ego in that sense, because my ego's like, no, I want to win. I want to win. Ah! But then I'm like, no, you fucking idiot. You're not going to win because I'm going to do this. And I know I'm not going to win playing like this. And the point of playing like this is to practice a specific skill. And that's all I care about. You are observant. So when you are in a situation, when you're on defense, okay, you're not just sitting there and just like guessing. No, what you're doing is you're understanding the person's choice of offense. Okay. Okay, this person kept every part of this tight. up until, so then I say, I could jab there. See? But here's the difference between somebody that mashes. See, he got rewarded there. This person's ignorant, doesn't even know that's a true block string. So he was gonna mash anyways, and he got that hit, and he got rewarded, didn't even understand why. That's dangerous. That's not sustainable, because you're gonna come across a player that understands that situation better than you, and then they're gonna exploit your ignorance. Oh, you mashed there. Okay, all right. So maybe I can cancel into a button instead, right? If I just know you're gonna do that, or let's do something like that, and I get counter hit. All right, that's where like cancels are really strong for those situations where people try to take their turn back after blocking buttons that are not that plus or that are negative. You just cancel the button and then they get hit by the cancel. Okay, so that's something that you can add to your repertoire. But you want to be observant. You want to, when you are under pressure, you want to be curious. If you do not have curiosity towards the opponent, no information is going to matter to you. Everything that is being told on the screen is going to be irrelevant. You don't care. You're playing a one-person game. So you are not going to take the opportunities that are given to you, and you're going to try to force things that are not going to be, they're not possible because of the way your opponent's playing, and then you're going to get frustrated. So observation, in order for you to obtain the skill, is that you have to treat every single opponent with the same level of admiration, respect, curiosity. In my opinion, you have to do that. Okay, it doesn't mean you have to think they're better than you. It's just that, like, you can recognize, oh, this person to some degree knows what they're doing. And even saying that is not saying like they're better than you, or that, you know, you can't 10-0 this fucking person. But it's just to say that I have to pay attention when I'm playing. Because in this game, execution is so much easier. Damage is so high. So on these interactions, if you're not paying attention, then you're going to play sloppy. And then players that you are significantly better than are going to take games off of you. And this is why your MR keeps doing this. It just goes, So if you want to stabilize your results, you got to stabilize your attitude, your efforts, your focus. Those three things, I stress them: your attitude, your efforts, your focus. Okay, those are the three things. If you want to have any sort of great skill in this game, you got to make sure you check those three boxes off with obtaining any skill: anti-airing, defending, offense, offensive structure, Oki, reads, footsies, anything. You understand that your defense influences their offense. So when you are on defense, everything that you do is a part of the conversation, and everything that you don't do is a part of the conversation. So if I am on defense and I block, what is this enticing a player to do? Eventually, if a player, for example, does this, eventually in the next situation, if they're paying attention, if they're observant, they're like, oh, he's not pressing anything. So at some point, the player is probably going to start throwing. Okay, and now you can look at that and say, it's not that this player is throwing me or wants to throw me or whatever. You'd be like, oh, whenever I block, he's more likely to throw me if I block out the sequence. You see what I'm saying? Here's another example. Let's say I do that. He gets hit. So now he starts doing this. And you know he's doing that. You can start going for those type of reads. You see? And you'll see players do this at high level. Well, they'll just wait for the walk back. Boom. And they don't press until they see the walk back. Okay? So you're influencing them. So whenever you make a defensive decision, understand what it is likely going to do to the opponent's mind. What are they going to think? They're like, this person's doing this. Let me counter this. So all you have to do is be aware of the counter. What counters my backdash? Meaty. Okay, so if they meaty me, what counters meaty? Parry, reversal, or block. So then you could choose one of those three. So it's like a nice little decision tree, right? It's like, okay, option, I have A, I have B, and I have C. And they all beat, right? They all beat what would be button. Okay, I could block. Okay, I could parry. I can reversal. So then whenever you make another decision, like, well, okay, well, if I block, what beats that? He's probably going to throw me. Okay, so he throws. Okay, or maybe he does an overhead, right? Because I'm crouch blocking. Then now I have a decision tree off of that. What do I do with this? I got parry the overhead on reaction, right? I can see. So this is how you would break down defensive decisions. So you should be aware of this at all times. So that way you get rid of like the gunk that comes with like thinking in a match. I shouldn't really have to think. I should just already know based off the situations, like, oh, he did this, he did this, he did this. Okay, I already have the solutions mapped out. Your thinking should be between sets, watching replays, reflecting, chatting with friends, training partners. That's where your thinking should exist. And now here is the last one. You choose how to lose. Now, if you want to reduce a lot of the pressure that you put on yourself when you play this game, decide up front how you're going to lose to somebody. I'm going to lose to them because they threw me 9 times in a row. If I'm going to lose in this situation, for example, I'm going to lose because my strategy didn't work. In this situation, I mitigated the more common options, and he had to hard read me. I'll die to a hard read, because that means you took a risk. You had to take the risk. I'm fine with that, but at least I didn't lose to myself. I lost in a way that was like stable. You go into a set, you go into a match, whenever you're trying to learn, whenever you're trying to, like, you just tell yourself, this is how I'm going to lose. And watch how much stronger your defense is going to get when you're like, yo, you have to throw me. That's a strong part of choosing how to lose, because people think that they're influencing you, but you've already determined way before the interaction, this is how I'm going to handle this situation in the corner. I don't give a fuck. It doesn't always have to be being passive. You can be aggressive. Yo, I'm gonna keep jumping out of the corner until you air to air me, because I'm willing to take the whack ass crosscut damage that you're gonna hit me with. You know what I'm saying? So I'm totally fine as Aki jumping out, and if this dude is not air to airing me, I don't give two shits. It's once I start doing this though, that's when it might get dark, right? So then you have to think about that. Or, you know, another thing Akuma can do is he can super this on reaction. And then you're taking a lot of damage, okay? So if they're not being optimal, it's like, okay, I'm totally fine with this until you show me, right? That's something that you've predetermined. So now let's get into some skill set stuff for why your defense is good. You understand your wake up options. So we talked about, of course, you know, in mid screen, we understand that if somebody is to throw me, okay, like Aki, for example, Aki can do like this, okay, and she can do this, okay? If I back roll, she can catch me there, okay? But then I look at this little gap and I say, wait a minute, there was a little gap there. So if I back roll and she does this, I can hit her out of this. You see? So a lot of people let Aki get away with this, but you can jab her out of this. You see? So she can't even do that. So this is now a situation you understand. You say, okay, you can't do that against me. So you want to understand your options in those situations. You want to understand, like, you know, if I do block something, can I move first? That's like a fundamental thing we all know about in terms of taking your turns, right? Do you understand the significance of the drive meter? So this goes back to what we talked about earlier of when I make certain decisions defensively, I want to take into account the long-term health of the repercussions from doing this, right? Like if I put myself in burnout, is it going to make sense? No. So here's a really good situation for this. If I have Aki cornered and I'm dominating her, right? If Aki does this, okay, that is a better use of my meter than to just mindlessly spam EX moves and try to burn her out. Not only do I get her drive gauge down, but you're more likely to make her feel hopeless, because the one thing that she's supposed to be able to get away with free in this game, nothing is really free, right? Everything's earned. But the thing that is free, you've taken away from her. Because now you're doing this. Now she's like, oh, fuck. Now I have to think about this. So now she feels like she has to do something, because if she doesn't, burnout. So whenever you make these decisions on defense, you want to figure out how to create situations that are going to be beneficial to you, of course. But it's not just that. You have to think about the worst case scenario. Are you okay with the worst possible thing happening? If you are, then make the decision. If you're not, wait, or make a different decision. One of those two things. You understand the situations of matchups. Okay, so typically what you want to do is you want to find the most fucked up situations that characters can put you in, and then you want to punish them, okay? So here's a common example with Dalsum. If Dalsum is trying to really just hammer away at Akuma's drive gauge, right? Like this, okay? You'll see a lot of people do this, and they just parry it, which is cool, but you can punish this like this. Okay, so you can perfect parry, DI punish that. And then look, I got a side switch. All because of a scenario that Doesn't seem that deep, but there are a lot of situations like that in this game where you can flip an entire match on its head just because you understand how to punish something accordingly. You can confidently counter drive impacts. Now here's something that everybody should be practicing, is when you are blocking, if you don't know which character has like a medium into a DI, certain characters do, okay? So those will legit frame trap you, which is fucked up because it's a medium. You're like, wait, what just happened? Okay, for the most part, if you want to help stabilize against drive impacts, simple rule of thumb, look for the heavy and buffer super. Don't commit to super, just buffer it, okay? So here's an exercise you can practice. All you gotta do, turn on repeat, always repeat playback, and you have 2 recordings. You can have Akuma or anybody just do this, okay? Empty fierce, no cancel, and then have them do this. That's it. And you're just gonna buffer. That's it. And you just practice over and over again. So you have to get used to the blocks done. Okay, so his, you want to buffer it a little bit late. Because if you buffer it too early, like I did, you'll lose the super sometimes, right? If you buffer it too fast. I just buffer it late. Like that, okay? Even easier if you have a backwards level 2. Okay, and you can do this with level 3, of course. See? All right, and then once you get good at that, what you want to start doing is implementing like a little bit more challenge, because you want to be able to differentiate, right? So let's say now he's gonna do fierce into fireball. So now you're not just reacting to anything. You're looking for the red. Okay. And then once you get good at that, what you want to do is you can get rid of the special and replace the special instead with a button, a medium into nothing, and then a medium into DI. Okay? Why? Because now what you're going to do is you're going to buffer on the heavy, and when you block the medium, you look for DI to throw it. See? And then you practice that over and over and over again, and then you're fortifying those connections in your brain. Your brain says, I understand. You get reps, less hesitation, more confidence, and you'll be able to defend the situation a lot easier. Okay? So the final thing for your skill set being A-okay, right, is that your defensive choices are varied, not just in actions, but in timings. So this is important. So let's say Akuma mirror, Akuma knocks you down, something like this, right? And then this happens, right? This is gonna beat my button. It's gonna beat my jump, backdash. Okay. Basically, I'm gonna have to EXDP or perfect parry this, or super. Okay. Even DI loses to this. See? So he could have DI'd me back. So you can't even DI there. You can drive reversal. Or maybe you don't want to deal with that because you're winning. You're like, it's not really worth doing it here. Okay. So what you want to do is you set the character whose drive rush overhead is fucking you up. Okay. But you can do this against anybody. So you have the same knockdown. So we saw drive rush off of sweep. Okay. So let's do the same thing. So we're going to do the same thing. Okay. We're going to have one set to throw. Okay. And then we're going to have one set to drive rush meaty. Like this. Okay. I'm going to turn all 3 of these on. So now what you're going to do is you're going to commit to a timing of blocking and only parry if you see overhead. You're going to just stand. You're only going to look for parry overhead. Why? Because if you take throw, it goes back to what we talked about. This is not the end of the world. I don't give a shit about this. Okay? And I can just back roll this. Okay? I back roll, look. See? I'm not in throw range anymore. Nothing for me to worry about. Now, because I'm delaying my parry, you notice I'm not getting punish counter thrown. Okay? If I parry there early, that's what happens. But because I'm waiting for the overhead, I block the regular stand strong, or the drive rush strong. I take the throw, and I just back roll. Not a big deal. And then if I see the overhead, perfect parry. And I can turn the entire round on its head because of that. So on defense, covering multiple options is insanely strong. But you see how I had layers there. It was partially accepting certain things to choose how you want to lose. See, so it's like a combination of elements. I'll lose to the throw. I'll lose to allowing the up close, you know, medium punch into a throw or whatever. It doesn't really matter because the throw is the least threatening thing here. I don't care about this, okay? I don't really care. If he goes low, you're already committed to low. I don't need to worry about low because I'm hard committed. I'm only standing up if I see the overhead. So there's nothing for me to worry about. So we'll add that in there. There you go. Oh, we'll add all of them, right? Look at this. See how easy that is? I just simplify by just accepting it, and I just mitigate. Look how I literally every single worst case scenario I was okay with, which would be what? Blocking the crouch and light kick, taking the throw, blocking the stand strong, he's +5. All of those things don't really matter to me because the most threatening thing after those things would still be throw, right? He can't drive rush overhead into a drive rush overhead again. I don't have to worry about that. I just simplified my focus to looking for that. So this is how the game is played. This situation paints it perfectly, in my opinion. It's like you understand what other options can exist in a situation and you mitigate them with certain timings. Okay, so that's like a really strong OS that you can incorporate. So anyways, so remember guys, right? So defense, basically the point of this is just to realize defense is just, it's two parts, right? It's mental, and it's having the mental resilience and the mental fortitude to be in these situations, okay? And then having the right attitude about the situations, leading up to it, when you're in it, and when you're getting out of it. And then the other half of it is the mechanical knowledge and the application of it. It's understanding the properties of things in terms of it, maybe something being invincible or parries or backdashes having, you know, properties that avoid throws, all sorts of stuff like that. Understanding pushback, and when you are away from the most threatening range of throw and stuff like that. So it's just a lot of understanding the facts of an opponent's offense, okay? Because there's a lot of illusions that are thrown around in this game, and if you do your research, you realize, oh, a lot of this shit is not as real as you think, or there are ways to mitigate multiple aspects or approaches of an opponent's offense, okay? So you just want to go into your matches and isolate and figure out what's one thing you want to practice from anything that I've shown you today, and you stick to it regardless of the win or the loss. Don't worry about your MR fluctuating. Who cares? All we care about is long-term growth, okay? So your MR might fluctuate, might take a little dip, it might grow. Who cares? The point is to stay even-keeled. It doesn't matter what happens on the screen in terms of the wins and the losses, as long as you can see your growth and your mindset, and then ultimately your skill set. That's all that really matters, okay? You build that resilience. It's a muscle. You work on it day in, day out, and then see how far you look, or how far you're going to get in these situations that used to terrify you. Watch how much more comfortable you're going to be in like 3 to 6 months, all right, of just sticking to this. All right, so if this helped you out, this is going to help you feel like a little bit more confident in those extremely fucked up Street Fighter 6 situations. Of course, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, let people know about Zaffarino, Bambino, Al Pacino, Masterino. All right, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Love you guys. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.